a video is not necessary. Plus, that cuts into my next class, which is the technology class. Right? How many people are taking that class? Okay, cool. So, yep, this is the next. It's the next one. Yeah. The next class is with me, James. He's like,
are we all taking all the classes together?
Yes. Well, not everyone. So yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So sorry, it's too much information. All right. So we're going to talk about some pieces, and I don't even know. Did I put the? Oh yeah, it is on. Okay. So we're going to talk about diversity, probably in a little bit different way than maybe some of you have heard before, because there are two pieces that I think are extremely important that typically don't get talked about in terms of diversity. How many people have been to a cultural competence training before? All right. Anyone been to a diversity training at all before? Okay. Joel, you can still raise your hand if nobody else raises their hand. No. Anyone have been to any kind of diversity training at all? Sensitivity training, sexual harassment training, diversity. Okay. All that stuff. Okay. All right. Cool. So there are two things that typically don't get talked about. One is the legal ramifications of diversity, or how we get to talk about diversity. And secondly is the spiritual fundamental basis of the need to talk about diversity. All right? And then even what diversity means. So we'll get a chance to explore all of that stuff. And so before we get started, I'd like to show a video. And how many people are familiar with T-Pain? Anyone ever heard of T-Pain? All right, cool. So some people didn't raise their hands, so I'll tell you a little bit about T-Pain. T-Pain is this hip-hop R&B star who creates these masterful pieces of art that capture the urban experience at its essence. The tapestries of music and sound that he infuses with the beat and the drive is of the level of Mozart or Chopin. He is the urban hip hop classical master of musical tapestries. Okay, you're not buying that. Okay. So he's not that good. Okay. To be quite honest. What's that? Mozart. Yeah, well, yeah, he's not that good. I mean, one of his songs is called "I'm in Love with a Stripper," so you can see what kind of stuff. Only to be followed up with his next hit, "I'm in Love with a Bartender." So you can kind of see where he's going with all this stuff. But he uses this computer animated voice, and so there are subtitles, and hopefully. I'll move this so folks can see it. So if you can't hear it or the words are distracting, you can at least look at the subtitles and make out what is being said. And the kids think this is neat, this computer animated voice. But what they don't understand is that's nothing but old Zapp and Roger, more bounce to the ounce. And I got one chuckle. Okay, good. So the kids think it's new, but it's not. There's nothing new under the sun, but history you don't know, right? So I'll play this video, and I want you to think about the themes that are being shown in this video, and then we'll spend some time talking about that. All right? So I'll move this. Let us rise up tonight with a greater readiness. Let us stand with a greater determination. Let us move on in these powerful days, these days of challenge, to make America what it ought to be. We got some difficult days ahead, but it doesn't matter what we do, because I've been to mountain top, and I've looked over, I see the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I So, who was the speaker? Dr. Martin Luther King. You are so close. Who was the speaker? It was not T-Pain. So one of the things that people don't recognize about the civil rights movement was that you remember seeing those pictures of the water hoses and the dogs that were being sick on those people? Do you know who those people were? Middle school and high school students. Those were not adults that those dogs were leashed on and that those hoses were opened up on. Those were children. So I wonder, what is it that would cause children and what would cause people to stand up against a lawful but unjust system and demand their rights with the face of fear, of being harmed, of being hurt? What would give someone the courage to stand up to that level of injustice? What might give someone that kind of courage?
They're broken and they've got nothing left. Like, they're fighting for their rights.
Okay, so they're fighting for their rights. They're broken. They have nothing left.
Their belief system, religion.
Their faith. The faith that in the face of evil, I do good and my reward will be good. Even if it doesn't look like it's good. That if I sacrifice myself, I can make a difference for somebody else so they don't have to suffer what I suffered. Their faith. And so when we talk about Dr. King, people like to smooth them out, like smooth jazz. They like to smooth out Dr. King. But one of the things that I want you as teachers and instructors and as guides and as people in society is I want you to remind people and wake them up to the fact that he was not just Dr. King, he was Reverend Dr. King. Because what he understood was that the fight that he was fighting was not just for black people. It was for working class white people. It was for women. It was for all of us. And he was trying to knit our souls together through our spiritual experience. And so he said, I might not make it, but we will make it. What were some of the themes that you heard in this particular speech?
There's an old hymn, Mine Eyes Have Seen the Glory.
So there was an old hymn from the Battle Hymn of the Republic. Mine eyes have seen the coming of the glory. My eyes have seen the coming of the glory of the Lord. Right, so he's drawing on that. What else is he drawing on?
He kept mentioning Declaration of Independence.
He talked about the Declaration of Independence. He drew on that and said, our great country has said these things and we're going to hold her to it. What else? What else did he draw on?
He was talking about the promised land.
He was talking about the promised land. What's he talking about, this promised land?
He's referencing Exodus, the Jewish people leaving Egypt.
So he's referencing the children of Israel leaving Egypt, a land where they were slaves for over 400 years. And he says, we're now going to embark on a similar journey. Right? Now, one of the things he doesn't necessarily understand, or maybe he did in his conversations while he was on that mountaintop, but one of the things I think is ironic is that Dr. King says that I might not make it, but we will. So I don't know if you see this in April, because they always show it on TNT. It's Charlton Heston's 10 Commandments. Let my people go out of my cold, dead hands. No, that's his NRA speech. I get those two. Right? So Charlton Heston is acting out this great exodus. And what we know is that Moses ultimately does what? Does he make it to the promised land? No, he does not make it to the promised land. Does Dr. King make it to the promised land? Now, one of the things I want you to know, or I want you to think about, is how many people believe in equity? You believe that equity is good for people to have high quality, equality, equity is a good thing. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Okay, good. All right. Because you got to raise your hand so I know, right? All right. So here's the next question, but you don't have to raise your hand for. I want you to think of all the speeches you know by Dr. King, and if you come up with one, and only one, you have some homework to do. Does anyone know what the name of this particular speech was?
I Have a Dream.
It was not the I Have a Dream speech. That was the I Have a Dream speech. Same speech. Homework.
To do with the mountaintop?
Yeah, why would it have something to do with the mountaintop, Natalie?
You're climbing up higher to get to the top.
Higher
like
to get
the
to...
ladder of success.
All right, like the ladder of success. And what does he keep saying in the piece? What's the hook?
I know we won't make it, but I know I won't be there right there with you, but you can make it.
Okay. This is the mountaintop speech. Now, here is the most ironic thing about this speech. This is Dr. King's last speech before his assassination. So he gives this speech and he says, I might not make it, but we're going to make it. I might not be there. And then he wakes up to an assassin's bullet the next morning. And so that sends chills down my spine. But it also reminds me of back to that story of the children of Israel leaving out of Egypt. Did they finally make it to the promised land? Yeah, they finally made it to the promised land. And one of the things that they started to kind of figure out, once Moses was off the scene, there was new leadership. And on their journey, this new leadership, was giving them directions. And the people started getting frustrated and upset with the new leadership of Joshua and Caleb. And so Joshua and Caleb stand before the people. They bring all the people together and they say, people, Moses is dead. And then they walk off the stage. Why did they need to make that declaration? Why did they need to make that declaration? Everybody knew Moses was dead. Why did they have to stand up and say that in front of the people?
They weren't accepting it. They weren't accepting the new leadership. They weren't accepting it.
They weren't accepting the new leadership. They weren't accepting the fact that Moses was dead. They were complaining because when Moses was around, he would have bread fall from the heavens. When Moses was around, when we were thirsty, he would hit a rock and water would come out. When Moses was around, we'd have a pillar of fire by night and a pillar of smoke by day. What's wrong with you guys? You guys are making us work. You guys are making us do the heavy lifting. When Moses was around, we didn't have to do that. And so they stood up and they had to tell him, Moses is dead. And I'd like to submit to you, Dr. King, and I mean this in the most respectful way, I mean no disrespect, but Dr. King is dead. Is he coming back? No.
But we know he's always with us, like up there.
Okay, so he's sort of with us, but I'm talking about the physical sense. Is he here in the physical sense? No. Is Gandhi here in the physical sense? Is Gandhi coming back? No. Is Mother Teresa here in the physical sense? Is she coming back? Nelson Mandela is not coming back. Will there be Nelson Mandelas? Will there be Mother Teresas? Will there be Gandhis? Will there be Dr. Kings? If there are, they have to be you. Did you know that you are someone's Nelson Mandela? You are someone's Mother Teresa. You are someone's Gandhi. You are someone's Dr. King. You. But all too often, we don't recognize it in ourselves, and so we hide behind the prison of embarrassment. How many times have you seen something, some interaction with another person, and you say to yourself, "Oh, that was wrong. That should have never happened like that." And then you say, what? Oh well. Not my problem. None of my business. I'll go away. What's that?
I'll just be a bystander.
I'll just be a bystander. So I'm over at Koen Rapids at the dollar store next to the Rainbow over there by Marshall's. Anybody know where that is? Mm-hmm. Right. So I'm in the store, and I like the dollar store, but they're worse than Target because they trick you because everything's $1. So you say, I can buy 50 of them because it's only $1. Right? So you end up spending all this extra money. So I'm in the dollar store, and there's an African American couple in front of me with a small baby, and they're checking out their stuff, and she's got his pants are hanging low, so you can see like 6 pairs of underwear. He's got on a shirt, his hat's over to the side. He's got a T-shirt on, that shows his shoulders and whatnot. She's got on pajama pants, house shoes, a silk scarf, and the baby's in a little rickety stroller or whatever. And so they're standing there, and something catches the guy's eye. So he's paying attention to something, and the lady has this apple juice, and she puts the apple juice up on the counter, and she takes out her EBT card. Now, some of you may know what that is, and some may not, but it's an electronic government transfer of money card. So if you're on public assistance, you get this so you can buy food and that kind of stuff. So she's in the middle of swiping this. The dude turns around, and he says, "You stupid boop! How the boop are you going to use that card? You know I got money in my pocket, you stupid, right?" So he's going off on this woman, and guess what people in the store do, including me? We start checking out the prices at the dollar store. How much is this? How much is this? And what's our mantra? What is everyone saying to themselves?
Do not get involved.
None of my business. I'm not getting involved. But as this is unfolding, the thing that hurt me the most was her response to everything he's saying to her. And guess how she responded? She didn't.
Right. Sorry.
She didn't. Which led me to believe what?
It happens a lot.
This was not the first time. So I'm standing there and I'm saying to myself, it's none of my business. It's none of my business. It's none of my business. And then the voice says, speak. I'm like, oh, why do I have to be the one to say something? Right? And to be quite honest,
other people in line.
What's that?
There are plenty of
There are plenty of other people in line. Voice, talk to them. Make them say something this time, right? And so I'm standing there, and I'm like, I don't know what to say. I've never been in this situation before. This is extremely hostile. I don't know what to do. So I say to the voice, I'll make you a deal. I said, voice, if they are still in the parking lot by the time I'm done with my thing, I will say something. Right? So I take my credit card out, and I'm swiping it real slow. The lady's like, sir, will you just... I'm like, oh, no, I'm fine. You know. So I ring my stuff out, I get my stuff, and I walk out in the parking lot, and he's still waving his finger and lots of attitude at her, right? And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to say something. So I start walking towards him. He gets a phone call. Yeah, man, I can't believe blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, can't go talk to him now. He's on the phone. I said, but voice, if he gets off the phone before I get to my car, I will say something. So I start walking to my car. I'm trying to walk kind of fast. And then he gets off the phone, and I'm like, ugh. So I know better now than to chase people down, talking about touching them behind the back, saying, I want to talk to you. You know, that's just a recipe for disaster. So they go into the grocery store. I follow them into the grocery store, and I go around another aisle, right? So I go around the aisle, so I'm meeting them face to face, because you don't want to come from behind on somebody, right? So I go around the front. Now, this is the thing. The voice told me to open my mouth, to say something, but he never told me what to say. So I'm standing there, and I'm waiting. I'm like, okay, download. I need a download. Give me a download. I need something, you know. So I'm standing there in front of the guy, and I said, sir, can I talk to you for a second? And he looks at me, and he puffs up. What? I was like, it's all good, sir. I just want to talk to you for a second. You know, would you mind? You know, can we just stand over here? And so I said that to give the mom and the baby a cue to give us some space, right? So the mom and the baby they go on a little ways. And now, at this point, I still got nothing. I've never been in a situation like this. I've never practiced for a situation like this. I got nothing. And then the voice says, open your mouth. So I look at the man and I said, sir, I'm not trying to get into your family business or anything like that, but can I share something that I know about women? If you want a woman to grow, you have to water her and give her sunshine. I'm like, what? What am I talking about? Water, sunshine? What am I talking about? So I repeated, so I can hear what I'm saying. So I said, if you want her to grow, you have to water her and give her sunshine. And I said, do you understand? And he looks at me and he goes, yeah, I do understand. Peace. All right, man. You got it. I'm out. I'll take care of you later. See you later. Bye. I'm out. Right? It took me a long time to figure out why I was asked to step in and say something. But when I got it, it made all sense. And I was like, oh. So why do you think the voice compelled me to say something?
Because it affects you. Maybe you had some similar experience.
Okay, so it could affect me. I could have similar experience. Why else?
Maybe he would listen if it was coming from you.
Maybe he would listen if it was coming from me. Okay, what else?
To make a difference.
To make a difference. When I got the revelation as to why I did that, it profoundly shaped how I operate in the world. It was revealed to me that I did it because of the small child. to show the child a different way of being. That there are people in this world who actually care about you and care about other people, and that will stand up and say something in the face of craziness. And I was like, oh. You see, all too often we see stuff, but we don't say anything. And if we use Robert's Rules of Order as a template for our lives, Robert's Rules of Order says, if you are silent, you what? You agree with everything that is happening. And all too often, we say nothing, and people take that silence as acceptance and agreement. And so, all it takes is for a few good, committed people to say something to ward off violence, destruction, and mayhem. And so we have to say something. But all too often we're trapped behind obstacle illusions. Obstacle illusions. So what I'd like you to do, if you can open up this workbook that has, it says culture and context on the front. On page 3, there are 4 circles. Let me check my time. Thank you very much. So on page 3, there are 3 circles. Yes, sir.
Do you have some extra ones?
I do, in fact.
You're welcome. You may need that. Hold on.
Cousins, you may need this as well.
Yeah.
So what I'd like for you to do, in each one of those circles, I want you to write down one thing that you value or one thing that is important to you in each one of those circles. One thing that is of value or importance to you in each one of those circles. It could be a person, a significant other, a niece, nephew, grandchild. It could be a place like Bemidji or Belize. It could be a concept like freedom or joy. It could be a thing like a motorcycle or a cabin. So one thing that you value or that is important to you in each one of those circles. Yep, on page 3, those 4 circles. One thing that you value or that's important to you in each one of those circles. And don't think too long or hard about it. It's not that deep. All right. It looks like most people have 3, if not all 4. So next, what I'd like to do is play a game. Game is very simple. What I want you to do is I want you to go around the room and I want you to find 2 people for each one of the things that you wrote down. All right? And I want people to write their initials next to the thing that they either share on their own paper or that they agree with is a good thing. Right? That they value that too, even if it's not written on their paper. So I want you to find 2 people for each one of those things you wrote down, and I want them to sign their name if it is something that they either agree to or something that they also share. All right? Any questions? You have 90 seconds to do it, starting now.
I agree.
2 for each one of those. So you have 4, so you'll need at least 8 people. 2 for each.
Hey, how are you?
Ooh. 60 seconds.
Oh, your son, yeah.
30 seconds.
Yeah. How many seconds? Yeah. I'm going to switch since we're right here.
And everyone in the room is engaged with everyone else in the room, is that right? So there's no one that's being isolated in the room, not having shared information. So we're circulating.
Sweet.
Andrea had a good question for the class.
Yes.
What is it? What's the... Actually, that's...
Three, two, one, and game over. All right. So was there anyone that was not able to find anyone to sign on their paper? Their paper is totally 100% blank, not one signature on it at all, and you were actually participating. All right, cool. So everybody was at least able to find one connection. As you were walking around the room, was there something you saw on someone else's paper that you said, hey, I should have thought about that, or I wish I had written that down? What was one of those things? Yes?
I thought exercise.
You saw exercise?
Yeah, and exercise is like a big part of my life. Like, it's my stress reliever. I love being outside and running, and I was like, I should have thought of that.
I should have thought about that. All right, cool. Someone else? Yes? God. You saw that and said, oh, why didn't I write that down? I should have wrote that down.
Oh, at the time.
Oh. Yes, it's quick thinking for all of us. Yes, that's part of the point. All right, one more. Yes, ma'am. Compassion, right? So you saw that as someone is like, I know I have compassion, even though I didn't write it down, right? Okay, good. Also, were there things that you either did not find someone to sign on, or it was more difficult to find someone to sign on? What were some of those things? Yes, Natalie.
I did say something. I really appreciate people coming over to me because it's really hard for me to get around.
Okay, so you appreciate, thank you. Yeah. What else? Yes, sir.
I had pizza as a value.
Pizza as a value! All right.
Nobody signed it.
So,
Nobody said pizza.
So raise your hand if you love Italian doughy deep dish pizzas. If you like pizzas, please raise your hand. All right, cool. So you're not alone. All right.
I know, yeah, like top 4.
It doesn't make the top 4.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't say it had to make your top 4, but if you value it, even if it wasn't written on your paper, just raise your hand if you value pizza. Right? Even if it wasn't written on your paper. All right. Give me 2 more.
Rocco's Pizza.
Rocco's Pizza. right? So give me two more. What are two more things that were either hard or you didn't get someone to sign on? Hard to find someone to sign on. Yes,
I think
ma'am.
it's interesting. I had two things that I have written down are family and then freedom. And I probably have twice as many people signed on family than freedom.
Okay.
I just find that
You thought that was interesting?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. How many people value freedom even if it wasn't written on your paper? The ability to do most of the things you want, right? All right, cool. One more thing. Yes, ma'am.
I wrote myself. And
Yourself?
That was the one that I got the least amount. So
Yeah.
right after writing that now.
Please raise your hand if you value yourself or you feel that you are important, right? Okay, good. I'm glad everybody raised their hands. Don't have to do any more counseling. So what's the obvious lesson of this particular activity? What's the obvious point?
We want the same things.
That we want the same things.
Or value.
Or we value the same things. Or at least similar things, right? Yes.
We learn from other people what they value, and then you need to think about what you put down.
Okay.
And what you need to value more by yourself.
Okay, so maybe this could be an assessment to see what things you actually value and what you could value more, right? Yeah. Now, this is one of the things I think is interesting. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to make a leap because I've done this activity a number of times with a number of different types of groups. And so I'll ask these follow-up questions to see if you fall in line with all the other groups that I've done. Please raise your hand if one of the four things that you wrote down had something to do with your race or ethnicity. One of those four values had something to do with your race or your ethnicity. All right? Cool.
Mine is kind of,
Okay.
not really, but not in special ed, like special ed people.
I guess it could, but I wouldn't necessarily say that special ed is a race or ethnicity.
Okay.
Although I would say that it is a marker that someone could try to separate or find commonalities with. So I could go with you on that, but it's definitely not a race or ethnicity. Gender. Did anyone put their gender as one of those five things that they value or that is important to them? So no one put their gender.
It is important.
Huh?
It is important.
Did you write it down?
I didn't write it down.
Oh, okay. That's what I'm asking. I'm just asking about what you wrote down.
That's not to proclaim that to the class.
I was just asking what you wrote down. You didn't write it down, right? Okay. Right? You didn't write it down. No. Okay. Right? So you didn't write it down. All right, for this next one, what I want you to do is I want you to wave your hands in the air if you don't care, if you can say yes to this next one. Did you write down your social economic status as one of those things that is of value or importance to you? No, nobody wrote down their social economic status. All right. So why do you think it is that people did not, when I asked the question, what is of importance or of value to you? Why do people not put their ethnicity? Why do people not put their gender or their gender identity? Why do they not put their social economic status?
They only ask for four things that, like, it just seems like other things come first.
Okay, so other things come first.
It's just my opinion.
In your opinion. Okay, that's fine. You must be watching The Good Wife. Okay, anybody watch that show? That mug is good. That show is good. It's like Scandal and then The Good Wife. And I can't get with Scandal.
it's so good.
It's such a woman show. Oh, Mr. President. And this is the thing about Scandal. So women will be like, "Oh, I hate infidelity." Scandal. Oh, it's so good. They love each other. Anyway, back to class. Right? So why did you not put those things? Why did people not put their race, their economic status, or their gender? Because it is not as important as other things. So Joel, to your point, I didn't say that they weren't important at all. They're just not as important as other things to who?
Yeah, that's what I was.
To yourself.
Yeah, that's what you were thinking? Yep.
Yeah, like what other big things?
What are the big things that are important to
me?
To you?
Well, all of us, but.
Well, all of us, but to you. Go ahead, James.
Do you find, I mean, obviously you've done this a lot. Do you find this everywhere you go? Or is this a little bit more particular that you're dealing with students who've chosen to go to a Christian school, and just about everybody that I saw had faith or something religious as their number one thing?
Yeah, I was going to ask, how does this compare to results? Well, results at like a typical liberal arts college with a bunch of 18 to 21-year-olds. You know, I think that even my answers 2 years ago would have been different at Gustavus College. You know, I don't know.
Okay.
How does it compare? Does it change?
Yep. I'll answer that. Go ahead, James.
Well, I'm just assuming. I mean, you went to St. Thomas. I worked at St. Thomas. I would gather that if you threw this at the average student population in St. Thomas, you're going to see some fairly dramatically different answers. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
I would say that I've not found dramatically different answers.
Okay.
Because the common denominator in doing this exercise is what? Myself? Who am I doing this exercise with? I do it all the time. I just did it this morning out at the Air Force Reserves off of Minnehaha over there by what's the concentration camp over there? Fort Snelling. Right? That's what it was. It was a concentration
I know.
Right? So over by Fort Snelling. So I did the same activity with them, right? And guess what we found? The same thing. Because what we're talking about is a human thing. And particularly humans in the Western world. So I have not done this in the Middle East or done it in the Far East or in former Soviet republics. So I can't talk about those, but I can talk about when I've done it in the United States. And so those things become very specific and particular to us as being citizens of the United States. Now, here's the real crux to this, or the part that is important for us to understand, listen, and learn from, is that we all were able to find things that were in common. Was anyone surprised that they had something in common with someone in this classroom that they may not have known or was enlightened by this activity? Was anybody surprised or delighted by something? Natalie?
I was pretty down Special Olympics for the point to me.
Okay.
I didn't know anyone else had that down because that was the last thing that I came up with.
Okay. So it was the last, and you were able to find connections, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Right? So as human beings, we have a lot more in common than we have differences. And those differences are what I refer to as obstacle illusions. Obstacle illusions. Things that keep us or create barriers for us living and being human beings. All right? So Genesis 1:27, this is from the New Living Translation. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, and likeness God, he created him, male and female. He created them. He created the male and female. So in the beginning, people were created male and female. But you're going to find something very interesting as we talk about this a little bit further, because this is poignant to this diversity conversation. And God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth, and subdue it, use it for all its vast resources in the service of God and man, and have dominion over it, over the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, and over every living creature that moves upon the face of the earth." So God starts out talking about the fact that we need to recycle. That we need to take some control and be managers, because he will hold us accountable to what we've done with the earth. So that's very interesting. It's also interesting that what image were people created in? in God's image. So that means when people are born, whose image are they born in? God's image. Now here's the funny thing. Whether they believe in God or not, they're created in His image. Right? Whether they like Him or not, they're still created in His image. And so if people are created in God's image, this next stuff that we're going to talk about flies in the face of that, and we'll get to that. And here's the tricky part, right? And God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and multiply. What's the problem with this particular piece of the passage? He says, be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth. What's the problem with that passage? Not everyone is married. Okay. It doesn't say necessarily anything about being married in here.
And multiply.
It says be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth. But it does not say with what? It doesn't say with what. What are we supposed to multiply it with, fill it with, and what are we supposed to fill it with? And so what have people done? What do we replenish the earth with? With garbage. When parents have babies, what is that child? It's a person made of who? Is it made of God? God made people once. He made these two people. That's it.
He put a capacity in them to keep making.
He gave them the capacity to keep making after what? After themselves. What do we know about human beings? So I believe, and you don't necessarily have to believe what I believe, but I believe that God created the heavens and the earth in 6 days. On the seventh day He rested, which meant on the eighth day, anything that was created on the eighth day and after was made by who?
Man.
People. Man. What do we know about the things that we make as human beings? They are flawed. And so, what are the things being fruitful and multiplying? What did people start replicating? They started replicating themselves. And so they're producing flawed merchandise. What happens when you make a copy of 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 a copy?
It looks nothing like the original.
It looks nothing like the original. And if it does look like the original, it is so skewed and flawed that it's hard to know that it came from the original. And so what we do is we replicate ourselves. We'll talk more about that. So God said, and there was. So Genesis 1:27, so God created man in His own image and His likeness, and He created him, male and female. Genesis 2:7, then the Lord God formed from man from the dust of the ground. So in Genesis 1, we were made male and female. Genesis 2 and 7, we get a body.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Yeah, I was just thinking, and I will think about it a lot. God created one man and one woman, right? So that means we are all offspring of that one man and one woman.
Correct.
Then how do we explain we have black people, white people? Where did the rest come from?
All right, here we go. Now you're talking, right? So you asked me the right question. All right, so here we go.
Me.
Yeah.
So white, and some of us black, others are Asians, others white.
And we're going to get to that. All right?
All right.
All right, cool, good. I'm excited. All right, so we were a spirit, and then we got a body. We were spirits first, and then we got a body. One of the things that I want us to understand is that Genesis 2 and 7 says that man became a living soul when his body received a spirit. We became a living soul. All right? Now, one of the things that I've learned through just practical, and this isn't any biblical stance or anything, but just practical living, is that when my grandmother died, we had this tradition where they bring the body in this big, beautiful, pearly casket, and I'm like, how much did y'all pay for that? Because she is not going to use it, right? And so they open up the thing, and my grandmother is laying there, right? And so everybody comes by and they look at her and, they say stuff. And, you got that one crazy aunt who's like, oh, Lord, oh, right? Making a scene and all this kind of stuff because she wants it to be about her and not about the dead person, right? So all that stuff is happening. And I walk up to the thing and I realize something. My grandmother's body is there. But she's not home. She's not there. And so when we separate this human soul, when it gets cracked, when the body becomes separate from the spirit, the body becomes a thing. And when the spirit is not connected to the body, because after the funeral, we got pictures out and we were sharing pictures and telling stories about my grandma, and we were doing all this, reminiscing, and it felt like my grandmother was there. But she wasn't. Her spirit was kind of there, but it was powerless. It couldn't animate anything. Right? And so when the spirit gets separated from the body, the spirit becomes powerless. This becomes important as teachers and guides to our students because they are encountering a world that is designed to crack their soul, that is trying to rip their souls apart every day of their lives. One of the things that, what happens is, when there's a crack in the soul, there's a little imp that's ready to pounce and fill that void. Guess what that imp is called? Free market capitalism. Have you ever seen a commercial that made you feel better about yourself? I'm not talking about the herpes commercials. All those things, they rock. They want you the people having herpes, they're living life, jumping off cliffs. It's like, oh, herpes seems like a good thing. But any other commercial that I see does not make me feel good about myself, because what they're saying is you are broken, you are worthless until you buy my product. Seymour Hoffman, Academy Award winning actor. That was his first name, right? Philip Seymour Hoffman. Award winning actor. Lots of money. Access to all sorts of stuff. Elvis, Jim Belushi, Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix had access to all of this stuff. But what did they have that they could not fill? A hole in their soul. And so when we're teaching kids, the question is, what are we teaching them for? What is the purpose of education? For a while, education was thought to be the way to educate the masses so that they could read the Declaration of Independence, or to educate the masses so they could know what the Bible says for themselves, to educate the masses for this other purpose. And what I'd like to suggest, that education for us is a mode for making the opportunity for kids and families to be whole people. Because the world benefits from their void. The world is trying to capitalize on their void. Drink all of this liquor. You'll be happy and you'll feel good about yourself. Sleep with all these people. Have inappropriate relationships with these folks. And that will fill that void. Buy these cars. Live in these neighborhoods. And your void will be filled. But what do we know about that?
Lies.
It's lies. They evaporate like the wind. It feels good for now, but it drifts. And then, more often than not, it creates a deeper crevice, a more damaged soul, because it's not being made whole. And so when we think about education, what we should be thinking about, particularly as people coming out of the school, is how are we making human souls whole through the educational process. And so this stuff becomes really important. Which of these center circles appears to be larger? The one on the left appears to be larger. What's the truth about them? They're the same size. And what gives the illusion that one is larger than the other? The arrangement of the circles, where? The surrounding circles. So context is everything. Context is extremely important in helping our students to know or to get the sense of how they fit and how they operate in the world.
Just like Sean Tuesday pointed out.
Yes, just like...
Conservation task.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Let me check my time. Okay. Cool. So let's go over some truths about human beings, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll come back and have more conversation. Is this good so far? Does this make sense? Is this okay? Cool. So if you go to page 2 in that same handout, we'll talk about some truths about human beings. First, human beings can learn, change, and grow. Who I am today is not who I was when I was 17. Thank God. Right? So we can learn, change, and grow. And the thing about educators, about teachers like us, is that we have to hold out hope in the face of no hope. In the face of the kids keep showing us the same old behaviors, we have to hold out for them that they can also change. Even when they don't believe that they can change. Because one day, they'll make a change. Right? And so human beings can learn, change, and grow. And I'll admit this, I was not always the most compassionate teacher. I wasn't always full of goodness myself. And there were some students that I thought were garbage. I thought, why am I wasting my time with these kids? They're not going to be anything. They don't want to be anything. They don't want to be in school. They're just troublemakers, and they're taking up space for people who actually want to do stuff with their lives. And guess how I treated those students? I treated them just like that. And then I got a humbling experience. I'd been out of the classroom for a long time, and I had repented a long time of that, and I had changed my ways about students and all that kind of stuff. But I get this email via Facebook from one of these students that I thought was garbage. And the student wrote me on Facebook and said, Andre, I want to thank you for everything you taught us in our leadership class. When you said so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so, I remembered that and I used it in this situation, blah, blah, blah. And I just want to thank you for being a good teacher. I had no idea what they were talking about. I barely remembered the student. And then when I saw the picture, I was like, oh, I remember you. I had to repent. Because I had made assumptions about another person's potential, about what they could be, what they would be, when in fact, who is in charge of that? God and who else? Them. That's between them and God. I don't have a right to tell somebody what they can or cannot do. And I cried. I was just like, oh. Fortunately, I had come to terms with that years before, but that was just one of those experiences that came back to me and said, you never know what kind of impact you're having on somebody. You never know. And so have good impacts in whatever you do. Right? Next is people do what they think works, even when what? Even when it doesn't work. And why do people do what they think works, even when it's not working?
They don't know another way.
They what?
They don't know another way.
They don't know another way. Why else?
They don't want to be wrong.
They don't want to be wrong. Pride.
Sometimes you just have to try something new.
Sometimes you just have to try something new.
They're afraid to change.
Okay, they're afraid of change. But why would I keep doing something even though I know that it's not working?
You don't believe in yourself?
I don't believe in myself.
Somebody you trusted taught it to you that way.
Someone that I trusted taught it to me. And what else? Fear. And fear. And it worked. I did that behavior, and at some point, it worked. The problem now is what? It's not working. I don't know if you guys have ever seen, a toddler throwing a fit in a public place, right? So a toddler's throwing a fit, and why is the toddler throwing that fit?
Because that toddler it's not getting what he or she wants.
Okay, so he's not getting what he or she wants. What else? It's worked before. Jimmy, get up, get up. Here's the candy. Just get up. Right? So now Jimmy is 35 years old. Jimmy's not getting what he wants. Woman, where's my dinner? Why is Jimmy acting like that? Because it's worked all of his life. And so how do we help young people change their behavior? Do we tell them what they're doing is not working?
No, their brains are changing, so they know how to develop and grow.
Okay, so their brains are changing. They need to learn how to develop and grow. How do we help them?
Show them something new. Show them that something new will work.
Show them that something new will work. When will they actually change? When they're ready. When they realize that behavior no longer works. Jimmy can be 62 before he realizes that, but we thank heaven he realizes it, right? And so that's part of our job, is to show our students what their behavior is like. We hold up a mirror and we say, students, this is what you're doing. It's funny, I do community mediation, so I'm certified by the state or whatever to do mediations and whatnot. And it's so funny because they call me in to do the teen stuff. So I get kids that are doing all sorts of crazy behavior, and they call me in to help mediate this stuff. And one of the things I asked the kids, I said, did you get what you wanted out of this situation? And what's their first response? No. Yes. They want to save face, they want to stay cool. They're like, yeah, I got what I wanted. And then, okay, so you wanted to be suspended? That was part of your plan? No, that wasn't part of my plan. So you wanted your mom to take off of work, lose a day's pay. So this was part of your plan, that your mom would take off of work, lose a day's pay, to sit down here and talk with me. So this was all part of your master plan. No. So what was your plan? I don't know. I didn't have one. Okay, that's part of the problem. You got to have a plan. What's your plan? How are you going to be? What kind of person are you going to be? Or are you going to be just a person who's operating off their instincts and off their emotional stuff? What kind of person are you going to be? And so when we start talking to young people about that, then we start to help them to get some strength under their own goals and aspirations, so that they start to drive their behavior and they don't have to go back off of old behavior that didn't work. All right? Next, all human behavior is goal-directed. One of the silliest things that I hear adults say, specifically to little kids, is they say, Jimmy, why did you take that cookie? And how does Jimmy respond to that?
Because
it's mine.
He typically says, I don't know.
Yeah.
But adults don't wait from the finish a statement. They stop at the I don't know part. Jimmy is saying, I don't know why you're asking me this. You know I wanted the cookie. Right? So everybody is working towards a goal. Everybody's moving towards something. We're trying to accomplish something. And lastly, the last truth that I want to give you is that an attitude is a reaction to a goal. What is an attitude? How has an attitude been defined for you? Who's told you about an attitude? And do you have an attitude right now? What is an attitude?
The way you're feeling right now.
Okay, so the way you're feeling right now could be an attitude. What is an attitude?
How you behave.
Okay, it could be how you behave. Anybody encounter attitudes? What are attitudes?
Body language.
So it's partly body language.
Something like preconceived, something that you make up your mind about something without really experiencing it.
Okay, so your preconceived notions about something and you make up your mind without experiencing it? Yes, Jenny.
Well, I was just going to add on to that, simply just what you think.
Okay, so it's simply what you think. And I want to say all of your answers were great answers, but those answers were inadequate for my parents. Those were great answers, but they were inadequate for my parents. Because my parents, they had us when they were young. They married while they were in college. And so we became the butt of all of their sociology classes and their psychology classes. They use all that stuff on us, which might explain my psychosis. Right? So our parents did all this stuff. And so their parents would yell, scream, and they would spank. And my parents said, they're going to raise their children differently. And my parents did a good job until we really made them mad. And my father would start saying crazy things. He'd say, boy, you better fix your face. And so I go. And then he'd send me to my room, right? Or my mother would get so frustrated, and she'd just, go straight to the stage. And she'd say, boy, go to your room till you learn how to act. And so I go into my room, I get my act together, and I step out into the hallway. To be or not to be? I spent a lot of time in my room. That's not what they were talking about in terms of attitude. And it wasn't until I was 17 that I really got it. When I was 17, I got what they were talking about in terms of an attitude. So my dad was my pastor, so I'm a preacher's kid. I grew up in the church, and on Sunday, we would go to church from 7:30 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. We stopped at 3 o'clock for chicken, not because we're black, but because chicken is delicious. So church all day on Sunday. So Friday night, I asked my dad for the car, and because he loves me, what does he say? He says, yes, he loves me. So I get the keys, I hang out with my friends, I fill the car up with gas, I come home before curfew. My dad says I have what kind of an attitude?
A positive attitude.
A positive attitude, a good attitude. And what do I say about my dad's attitude?
Positive attitude.
That is also positive. So Friday night, my dad and I are cool. Sunday, my best friend Dexter calls me at noon and says, Andre, can you pick me up for the movies? What do I know about Sunday? Church. All day. But I'm 17. I'm invincible. And Jesus is my friend. So I go up to my dad and I say, Dad, can I borrow the car? And what does my dad say? Not only does he say no, but he gives me the hell sermon. Every negative consequence in my household, the ultimate consequence was that you were going to hell. You didn't do the dishes? Going to hell. You didn't make up your bed? Going to hell. And either you could go to hell on your own or he would show you the way. As a response to that interaction, I would say my dad had what kind of an attitude?
Negative.
A negative or a bad attitude. What would he then say about my attitude? That it was also a bad or a negative attitude, right? So what was it that determined the attitude?
Of you asking him for permission?
Okay, so me asking him for permission might have been that. What determines an attitude? Perceptions. The response. All right, let's bring it to home. Let's bring it back to home. And I'm sure that this has either happened in your life or it's happened in the life of a teenager in your life. That the teenager goes up to an adult and says, oh, dear, gracious, kind, and beautiful adult. Now, first of all, sidebar, they don't ever talk to adults like that, right? But this particular time, they do, oh, kind, beautiful adult, your hair is so beautiful. You flow and you're so graceful. I was just wondering, after I give you all these compliments, will you please let me go to Cindy Whitworth's party? It starts in 5 minutes. And the adult is looking at this kid like, you've got to be kidding me. Your room is a mess. You got a C on your report card. And you and your siblings have been fighting all week. And you want to go to Cindy's party? No, you're not going to Cindy's party. What happens to the kid?
He cried.
He may cry.
Or clean up his room.
Okay, they may be motivated to clean up their room, right? Typically what they do is they get angry, they stomp off. It seems like they gain 5,000 pounds because as they're walking to the room, all you hear is right? So they get in the room and then they close the door too firmly. And then you're standing there, you're thinking, you're like, you know what? I was a little harsh. You know, I'm transferring some other frustrations onto the kid. You know, they can't, you know, Cindy's a good influence on my kids, so I can let her go to the party. We can get the room cleaned up. You know, we're already working on the grades, so forth. So you go to the kids' door and you bang on the dungeon door. And the gargoyle dragon is breathing because you can see all the smoke coming from under the door. And you stand there and they say, "What do you want?" And you say, "You know what? I was just thinking, you can't go to Cindy's party. You can only stay for an hour and a half. I'll drop you off. I'll pick you up. And then we'll take care of some of this other stuff. And we'll make a night of it, blah, 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 blah." What happens to the kid? Depends on the kid. All right. More often than not, what would happen if it were you?
Happy.
So in some cases you'd be happy, right? In most cases, what would happen to the kid's attitude?
Well, they would be happy, but they still have to know that they need to clean their room.
Yep. So they still have to know that they clean the room. They may be happy. Their attitude at the least might be positive where it was negative before. And what makes the demarcation of a positive and a negative attitude? How does one know that one is going to have a positive or a negative attitude? If you get what you want.
You compromise.
We don't ever compromise. And I'm going to talk about that too. Compromise is evil. Evil. But we'll talk about that later. But when you talk about an attitude is a response to goal accomplishment. When people get what they want, they have what kind of an attitude? A positive. When they don't get what they want, they have a negative attitude. All right? So we'll stop right there. We'll come back in 15 minutes and we'll pick up where we left off. So thank you.